Good late afternoon or early evening for some of you out there. We're right in front of the weekend here. Weekend's just about here, and we've got a lot of football, college, and professional to watch. But before we get there, I want to make one more video about DK Metcalf. And I've already made the video talking about the trade stuff, which I have already said everything that I feel I need to say about that right now. I don't think there's any point in me continuing to expound on those points that I made in that video. So this video is not going to be from that angle. As far as I'm concerned, we're not trading him and we shouldn't trade him, and that's that. So I want to talk about DK Metcalf, the player, a little bit, because in order to understand why some fans want him to get traded or think he should get traded or whatever, you need to take a step back and take a look at DK Metcalf, the player, and figure out what he's doing that is making people not want him around anymore. Because over the first 4 years of his career, he was among the most productive receivers in NFL history when you compare his first 4 years to their first 4 years. Like, there have only been a couple of guys that matched him and even fewer guys that beat him in that area. So it's kind of weird that this is a guy who produces this much and the fans want him out. So there are two angles that the trade Metcalf people tend to come from. The first is the penalty stuff, and that one I kind of understand. I don't think the penalties hurt us as much as people act like they do. But at the same time, penalties suck. You don't want penalties. You don't want your team to commit penalties. When a player is committing penalties, you want him to stop. Penalties hurt your team. Don't do that. So I get that. On some fundamental level, I understand that argument. Penalties suck. You don't want your players committing penalties. He's committing a lot of penalties right now. People are not happy about it. Okay. But there's another angle that I see from some people, and it seems to come from this perception that DK Metcalf isn't playing well. Like, he's not helping this team win. He's not being a valuable player. He's not a valuable piece of this offense right now. So I want to talk about that a little bit here, and I want to dive into that because honestly, I'm not saying that DK Metcalf is on pace to have his best season ever. He's probably not. But honestly, I would go so far as to say he is on pace to have his most efficient season ever. And honestly, sometimes those two things go hand in hand. Not completely, but what I'm trying to say is, in terms of what we've seen through the first 5 games, in terms of just playing football outside of penalties, DK Metcalf might be playing the best football of his professional career. And that sounds a little bit bold. That sounds a little bit crazy to some people, I'm sure. But let's take a look at some stuff here with Metcalf. So I just want to address the most basic level complaint that I see when it comes to Metcalf's play. And it circles around his production. He's got 22 catches for 337 yards and 2 touchdowns so far this year. And there are people out there who look at Tyreek Hill and they go, hey, why does Tyreek Hill have so many more catches and yards and touchdowns than DK? They look at, I don't know, Puka Nuka, and they say, why does he have so much more production than Metcalf? They look at, there are a bunch of receivers that have more production than Metcalf, and they go, why does our guy only have 22 catches? Justin Jefferson would have 60 catches if he had played every game so far this year. Why isn't he up there with the top guys if he's getting paid so much money? And first of all, just to kind of process through that argument, because I think it's a very surface level argument that some people are trying to use here. DK Metcalf has played 5 games. He's been injured, by the way. He's played through an injury in 4 of them. So not only have most receivers in the NFL played 2 more games than Metcalf, I think a couple have played 3 more because of Thursday Night Football. So those receivers that you're talking about, the Tyreek Hills of the world, the Pukanukas of the world, they played way more than Metcalf. They've had way more opportunities, and it's just going to happen. When one guy's played in 7 or 8 games and another guy's played in 5 games, the guy who's played in more games is probably going to have more production. So I think this is a very surface level complaint that some people have. The production isn't up there with the top guys, but that's what happens when you've only played in 5 games. Second, you have fact that he's in an offense where there's a lot of other things going on, and some of these other guys that we talk about, they don't have as much going on. Like DK Metcalf is in an offense with Tyler Lockett. Three productive tight ends. We use tight ends more than almost any other team in the league, maybe more than any other team in the league. We have an effective running game. There are these other teams out there that have top receivers that spend huge portions of the game just spamming the ball to that one receiver over and over again. DK's never going to get that. DK's never going to be the guy that the Seahawks just throw the ball to 20 times a game because that's what they do best. They're always going to be a team that spreads the ball around, and they should be a team that spreads the ball around. So the production's never going to get up there with those guys. And third, it's the double team stuff. And we talk about this all the time. DK draws double teams more than most receivers. Very few receivers have a double team rate as high as Metcalf's. So it's going to be harder for him to produce on that level. And I'm not saying that guys like Tyreek Hill and Justin Jefferson don't get double teamed, but DK is pulling double teams at a rate right up there with the highest. So that's just the very surface level stuff that I wanted to address real quick, but I want to go beyond that. So I want to talk about catch percentage. I want to talk about yards per catch. I want to talk about success percentage. I want to talk about some of these more second level statistics, because on the first level, Metcalf's having a pedestrian season. 22 catches, 337 yards, and 2 touchdowns in 5 games. That is kind of pedestrian, but you take a look at some of the second level numbers. DK Metcalf is actually having the most clean season he's ever had as a Seahawk. His catch percentage is up to 69%, which is the highest it's ever been by a lot. His previous high was 2020, just over 64%. He almost was 64% last year. In 2019 and 2021, it was down to 58%, actually pretty low. So his catch percentage is actually at a career high. And this is despite the fact that his yards per catch is right up there with his best seasons. His best seasons in terms of yards per reception were 15.5. In 2023 so far, he's right close to there, 15.3. So he is in the same territory as his most explosive seasons, despite it being his most efficient season at the same time. In 2021 and 2022, he averaged 13 yards a catch, and then last year he had 11.5 yards a catch. So you try to draw an equivalency here, and there's no contest. So even though Metcalf's overall production might not be what it was in terms of bulk, as it was in like 2020, which was his best year in terms of bulk production, his yards per target is at a career high, 10.5. It's only gotten over 10 once before. That was the year he made All-Pro second team. And maybe even more interesting than any of that, because those are, like I said, second level statistics. They're not the things that get printed in the box score. But if you do a little bit of digging, you can find those numbers and you can see actually Metcalf is arguably more effective than he's ever been. But then I want to talk about success percentage, because this is maybe even beyond that. This might be like a third level statistic, because this is not something that you typically see even in like advanced box scores. And in terms of success percentage, DK Metcalf is destroying his previous high water mark. It's not even close. In the first year of his career, his success percentage, and let me actually, real quick, what is success percentage? When you get targeted, does the play advance your team towards winning? That is a successful play. If the team targets DK Metcalf on a play, and that play results in positive EPA, then it is a successful play. So in order for the play to be successful, DK has to catch it, and DK has to gain enough yards for the play to be considered a successful play. So you can catch the ball, but if it's 3rd and 8 and you gain 2 yards, that's not a successful play. So you can look at his success rate in previous years. 52, 58. The last 2 years it was below 50%. 2021 it was 48. Last year it was just under 50. This year, 68.8, 69% basically, identical to his catch percentage. So not only is his catch percentage at a career high, but every single catch he's made so far this season has been successful in advancing the team towards victory. So I think when you look at things along those lines, his 22 catches go a lot further. There are probably receivers out there that have 35 catches, but they haven't made as many successful catches as Metcalf, because if a catch only goes for a couple yards on a 3rd and long, then what was it worth? Not anything. It's not even really giving you room for your punter most of the time. And Arjan Menon on Twitter, a great advanced analytics guy who does a lot of stuff like this on Twitter. Great follow, by the way, if you want to look into him. I think he used to work for the Jets. He posted this chart earlier today on, well, X now. Receiver success rate when targeted so far this year. And again, he lays out what success means. A successful target is when the EPA is greater than 0 on the target. So a catch for a decent gain or a pass interference will equal out to be a successful play. DK Metcalf is 7th in the entire NFL for receivers. And this includes tight ends, by the way. And as you can see, this ranks over 130 guys. Metcalf is 7th right now. I'll bet you didn't know that. I'll bet you didn't realize that he was genuinely one of the most effective receivers on a per-target basis in the NFL so far this season. And 2 of the guys ahead of him have less than 20 targets on the season, Shakir and Raymond. They have 16 targets, 19 targets. Nelson Aguilar has 21 targets. You could almost toss those 3 guys out because of a low sample size. Of the guys who have a sample size of at least 30 targets, the only guys who are more successful on their targets than Metcalf are Dalton Kincaid, Josh Reynolds, and Cole Kmet. He ranks above guys like Brandon Ayuk and Travis Kelce, really good players. Now, those guys have more targets than him. They're probably having better seasons just because they're maintaining their effectiveness on much higher usage. But again, Metcalf's only played in 5 games, and Ayuk's played in 7. I think Kelsey's played in 7 or 8. Yeah, I think it's 7. So at the same time, their usage is up because they played more. So when you cut off the top 3 guys, Metcalf is less than 2 percentage points away from the top. So when you consider the fact that this offense has been strangled a little bit by the injuries, we've missed offensive linemen the whole season. Metcalf himself has been injured and playing through it for most of the season. Pretty much every game he's been playing through a rib injury. The Charbonnet injury, if you want to throw that in there. The fact that he's maintained not just the production, because production's one thing, but the effectiveness to be successful on almost 69% of your targets is actually kind of remarkable. So before you judge DK Metcalf on just the raw catch numbers, the yards, the touchdowns, go a little bit further than that. Dig a little bit deeper. Because if you look at stats that are a little more probative, if you look at the numbers that are trying a little bit harder to actually get to the bottom of how good a player is and how effective they are and how efficient they are, Metcalf might be having the best season of his career. And this doesn't even get into the double team rate. Like, this is completely removed from all the double teams he draws, which makes the rest of the offense go that much easier. So you put it all together, yeah, he might be having the best year of his career. So just something to think about as we move forward with Metcalf. Something to think about next time he commits a penalty, because eventually he's going to commit another penalty, and you're going to get super hung up on those 15 yards or 10 yards or however many yards it ended up costing the team. But think about all these things that he is doing, and it's really not that hard to take the good with the bad. All right, I'll see you guys later. Go Hawks. Going live on Twitch sometime after dinner. More Resident Evil 7, I think. And let me know what you guys think. Let me know if you see it a different way. I know some of you do. But seriously, DK Metcalf is, in some ways, improving his game in some remarkable ways. He's got, I think, one drop so far this year, by the way. Think about that. See you guys later.